Hello and welcome. I'm Craig Harrington, and the topic of today's discussion is import safety. The United States annually imports over $1 trillion in foreign-made goods. These goods come predominantly from China, Japan, Mexico, and Canada. Unfortunately, in many instances, the country of origin does not have health, environmental, and safety standards which are comparable to the United States. We have very strict regulations when it comes to the manufacture of goods, but countries like Mexico and China have lax regulations. The United States has had particular trouble with Chinese imports. Unfortunately, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is tasked with protecting the U.S. consumer market from importing contaminated materials, has no capacity to do its job. The FDA is only able to screen less than 1% of the total amount of import that comes into the United States. The domestic consumer market in the United States is essentially flooded with foreign-made goods, of which almost none have been tested by the FDA or other American regulatory agency. We as consumers are left to hope that the country of origin maintained its own regulatory restrictions on health, safety, and environmental standards, because there's no way of knowing whether or not the product we're buying was contaminated along the way. Of the thousands of shipments that enter the United States every day, almost none are screened, tested, or otherwise overseen by the FDA or some agency. Some of the most egregious examples of the United States' complete lack of import safety protections come in our constant need to recall goods made in China. In the past several years, we've seen massive recalls of Chinese-made pet products after Chinese-made pet foods had contaminated the American market, resulting in the deaths of over 3,600 American cats and dogs. There was also a major scandal involving a Chinese-made blood thinner, heparin, which had been contaminated with toxins and resulted in the deaths of 81 American patients. Then there was the 2007 recall of Chinese-made toys, after 25 million toys had been contaminated with unsafe levels of lead. Chinese tires have been recalled because of blowout risks. Even in China's own domestic market, its own government had to recall millions of gallons of milk and millions of boxes of powdered milk, which had been contaminated with tasteless chemicals, which resulted in complications and death for infants and young children. If China's own government won't protect the materials which it sells to its own people, we can't expect it to protect the materials which it sells to the United States. And we can't protect ourselves because the FDA is simply underfunded. The FDA would have to be 100 times bigger to really deal with the task at hand, and that would be a ridiculous scenario in and of itself. The United States needs to stop importing so many goods. We keep importing things that we don't make ourselves, and it's not a safe way to continue. On behalf of concerned citizens, I'm Craig Harrington with economyincrisis.org News.
Wake up, America! Open up your eyes! Wake up, America! Wake up!
Produced by economyincrisis.org.